Good morning, and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. Here's an experiment to try. Nod your head yes, but say the word no. Now, you could probably do it, but I suspect it required concentration. The same would be true going the other way, too, saying yes and shaking your head no. I think the antitheses are a bit like that. You might not be aware of it, but there is a part of the Sermon on the Mount that is called the antitheses. The Sermon on the Mount begins with the Beatitudes, and then Jesus speaks about being the salt of the earth and the light of the world, and then he launches into 6 statements that use a formula not found anywhere else in the Bible. Jesus says, "You have heard that it was said," and then he quotes an Old Testament saying, and then he says, "But I say to you." Some have thought that Jesus was tossing out the law of Moses. But the truth is that the contrast that Jesus was drawing wasn't with the law itself, but with the way the law had been understood. Jesus is calling his hearers and us to a new way of life, extending the law to build a community of love. If you put all 6 antitheses together, you discover that Jesus seeks to build a community of God where hate doesn't happen, where lust cannot deform, a truth-telling, non-retaliating, enemy-loving community. Jesus is rereading God's commandments and putting them in the context of loving one's neighbor. So that's my proposal for this week, that we look at these statements called the antitheses and attempt to see and grasp Jesus' call to live in love. Expect to be challenged. Expect to be surprised. Let's look at the first one, found in Matthew 5:21 through 26. "You have heard that it was said to those of ancient times, 'You shall not murder,' and whoever murders shall be liable to judgment. But I say to you, if you are angry with a brother or sister, you will be liable to judgment. And if you insult a brother or sister, you will be liable to the council. And if you say, 'You fool,' you will be liable to the hell of fire. So when you are offering your gift there before the altar, if you remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there before the altar and go. First be reconciled to your brother or sister, and then come and offer your gift. Come to terms quickly with your accuser while you are on the way to court with him, or your accuser may hand you over to the judge, and the judge to the guard, and you will be thrown into prison. Truly I tell you, you will never get out until you have paid the last penny." So here's the thing. We may have restrained from murdering anyone else, but most of us have acted murderously toward our neighbor. Racism, rancor, name-calling, demeaning someone, all of these and many other ways are ways we act in harm for our neighbor. Jesus wants a community where hatred is not part of things. In fact, while it's a bit of hyperbole and exaggeration, Jesus says even an insult or calling someone a fool should send you to hell the same way actually murdering someone does. These ways are far from what the kingdom of God is supposed to be. Anger toward another is a serious violation of neighbor love. And then Jesus goes on with something perhaps even a bit more challenging. Jesus says that if you are coming before the altar in worship and remember that someone else has something against you, go straighten that out and then come back once you have reconciled with each other. I believe we would understand it if Jesus said that if you are about to sacrifice and you have a grudge against someone else, go give forgiveness first. That makes sense to us, but that's not what Jesus says. Rather, Jesus said that if you were about to worship, in this case offer a sacrifice, and you remember that someone else has a grudge against you, go straighten it out first. Go seek forgiveness first. And that's really hard for us to do. We are so me-oriented, so focused on how we may have been wronged. But Jesus urges us to think about and to be aware of the ways we may have wronged someone else. There's a humility and an absence of pride there. I don't need to reconcile that person to me before I come to God. I need to be reconciled to them. And it's not about giving forgiveness. It's about seeking forgiveness. It's about an awareness of harm we may have done or intended another that acts as a wedge between us. A community with wedges is not a community of love as God intended us to be. Actually, this is why sharing the peace in worship is so important. And frankly, most of us don't understand this part of worship. Instead, we greet one another, talk about the game last night, see how each other's doing, that kind of thing. On the other hand, this time is meant to be a time of reconciliation, a coming together among us before we come together with God around the altar. And it would be great if we used that time to give forgiveness to someone. It would be even better to consider who we need forgiveness from and to seek that out. To whom have we acted in angry ways? Whom have we hurt? Reconcile together. Create community marked by love. This is an urgent matter for Jesus. We are called to live in love with one another, not in anger. The final thing is significant. When Jesus says, "I say to you," the you is plural. We can't always control our individual emotions and reactions, but we can seek reconciliation and build a community based in love together. We know all about life by what we have heard said. May we live, but I say to you. Thanks for watching, and remember to let this day belong to God.